Hmm.
Hey guys, it's Alek, the creator of Onward Into Darkness and the founder of Lost Nights, the YouTube channel, and of course the meme pages. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. It's not done. That character is done. So chapter 1 is complete. Chapter 1, Paladin Mordecai, is now complete. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. I'd love to have your feedback on this episode if you have any anything to kind of discuss, or what your favorite part was, or what have you. Like I said, this is something very different from what I used to, make gaming videos, of course, and they were all gameplay, comedy oriented, and this was something very different from me. It's something I kind of put out on a limb, but I have been lacking a narrative outlet now for, I guess, 2 years. If you didn't know from before, I had some issues with work as far as the channel goes, and so I had to remove the past content because it was not appropriate. So this is a new outlet, a new try, something totally different from what I used to do, and I hope you have all thoroughly enjoyed it. I have definitely enjoyed making it. This is the first thing I've ever written as far as videos go. I used to write some short stories back whenever I was younger, some kind of like non-verse poetry stuff that I feel like everybody makes. And this is my first time writing a series and not just filming something and kind of coming up with stuff off the cuff. I guess it's been, like I said now, like 2 years. I actually recorded all of this footage, and I essentially beat Dark Souls in New Game Plus with the HUD off as this character, this Paladin character. And the whole point was that I wanted to have a cinematic experience to do something with similar to this. And I just never ended up creating it until now. And then now, we've all been in quarantine because of the coronavirus and everything, and I've had time at home, where before I'd get home and I get up early for work. I'm an electrical engineer, and I get up early for work, and so I'd get home and I'd be tired and not want to do anything in the evenings as far as creative goes. But now that I've been working from home, doing conference calls, spreadsheets, things of that nature at home, I don't get up as early. I don't do nearly as much, obviously, so I still have some creative juices left to me in the evenings. And so I have written this entire series, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. I want to give special shout out. I've had some of my good friends helping me with this series, whether it be thumbnails from Claude. I got Howard to help me out with some voicing. My friend Christina helped me out with some voicing. I've pulled voices from Demon Souls, from Dark Souls 2, from, of course, Dark Souls itself. I've bombarded some of my friends. Carrie is one of them that I've bombarded with questions of like, hey, is this good? Do you like this? Should I do this? And this is just such a unique experience for me, something totally different that I've just really been searching for feedback, because it's unusual, I guess. Not everyone, I'd say, would make a narrative series, especially in a game like Dark Souls, but I found that it's one of the best platforms that I've found to do it in, because Dark Souls is such a vague story. It's so not structured. You can, not only can you go anywhere, which, really in any order, which doesn't really have an effect here, because I can play the footage in any order I want, as was seen. But the story is so not scripted in that you don't have a bunch of cutscenes with dialogue. You don't have dialogue boxes necessarily, and even the dialogue that is present that I did pull from the game talks about things like defeating darkness and things of that nature. So that way it actually worked in this setting, which is just genuinely unique that I made a series that is in Dark Souls, but not about Dark Souls, but is just kind of piggybacking off the already existing world, but then still being able to use those same boss fights and just rename them or repurpose them or what have you. And it's been great for that, and I plan on doing it with the rest of the Souls games. I've already got a character established for Dark Souls 2. I just made a character in Dark Souls 3 that fits the bill. I looked at Demon Souls, what I'm going to do for that, and of course Bloodborne as well. I think Sekiro right now is probably too, like not having that freedom of character creation and armor sets and things. I don't know that I can do something unique in that game, which is also like games like, you might say, oh, well, Souls, like you can do The Surge, you can do Neo, but some of those games I feel are too structured in their storyline, in their characters, that even though you can, just to peek behind the curtain, the entirety of what you just watched of Chapter 1 Mordecai was a female character model. A lot of times when I play these games, I've used female characters, and so that's what it was. And I just wore the Paladin armor, which hid that fact, essentially. If you were keen of eye, maybe you somehow noticed it, but not having a face displayed, I could hide that fact. Now, the other games going forward, I will be, generally male characters unless I get a female friend to do the voicing, because that's a possibility. Right now I've got characters established for Dark Souls 2, 3, Bloodborne, and then for Demon Souls we may do female character. We'll have to see. I am slow to bring in others for voice work because, as it is my series and I'm not necessarily hiring people, it's hard to have someone be as invested as I am in it. I wrote the entirety of this series in about a week, and then scheduled it over like 4 months. But all of it was written in about a week. All the footage was captured before, so I just went back and I watched the footage, and the process behind that, some behind the scenes here for you, is I would watch the episode, I would watch the footage of the section that I'd have a general pathing of like, okay, I want to hit this area, then this area, then this area, because it fills the narrative in the way that I want it to. And then I'd watch the footage from that area, and I would handwrite the dialogue for that area as I watched the video. And then once I had established, a couple pages or so, I'd stop and find a good stopping spot. Then I'd go back and I'd type it. And through typing it, I would really refine it. I would kind of bring in some of the rhyming, some of the more, kind of like medieval type speak, where it's not as, just a different flow to it, essentially, where it's very, like this thing I saw kind of, that I did not know. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've obviously watched the entirety of this series, right? Like, that's my presumption. And then I would go to record it, and essentially what I would do is I'd pull up my software, and I'd do a voice like this, and then I would pitch drop it about 10% to get that real deep, dark, rich voice. And while recording it, I would find anything that didn't flow in the writing, and I would fix it, of course, as I said it. That way it would flow speaking-wise and wouldn't just be like this awkward wording. So once all of that was done, then I'd go into Premiere, I'd put the dialogue in there, I'd pull the clips in, and I'd start cutting. And so I'd line up all of the clips with the dialogue, I'd get everything like that all the way to the end, and then I'd scroll back to the beginning and I started adding music. And for much of this series, this one in particular is very dark, very foreboding, very kind of demonic in some sections. A lot of it, which all of the gameplay, the music was turned all the way down, so that way I could really capitalize on my own music and my own interpretation of these areas. And so I would go through, and most times I would layer songs, and I've got the whole, Kevin MacLeod the royalty-free music guy. Yes, Kevin MacLeod. Great stuff. I bought his entire music collection of royalty-free stuff. He has a lot of good horror tracks on there. And what I would do is I would layer it. And so sometimes you would get kind of discordant. It wouldn't mesh quite right. But I felt that it added to kind of the environment. Like you got two songs that are kind of not really flowing well together, but you're in hell. So like that, it's kind of this, it gives it that feeling, right? And hopefully it was never like painfully different or anything. I tried to layer songs that wouldn't totally conflict, just kind of in minor subtle ways, to where if you really listen to the soundscape, there's usually 2 to 3 songs playing all at once, essentially. And I'd really try to time, battle themes with whenever the characters would enter on screen and such like that. And I just went with it from there. And the first, example, the pilot episode, I actually created that 2 years ago as a proof of concept of, hey, I'd want to do this. And then, everything kind of fell apart, and I had to come back around to this 2 years later. And so episode, 2, essentially, after the pilot, is where this really all began for me, creating the series again. And so, it really kind of got fleshed out, and hopefully over the first couple episodes there, it really kind of hit its groove. And so we have, Chapter 1, Paladin Mordecai, with 2 seasons. And that's awesome. And so I want to continue that trend. I want to do, and of course we'll take a breather. We just finished Chapter 1, so we'll take a breather, a couple months, what have you. And then we'll start Chapter 2. And I won't spoil what Chapter 2 will be yet, but we'll do Chapter 2. It'll be a new character in a new game. It's still called Onward Into Darkness. There's still, it'll have different motivations. It won't be a paladin once again. And we'll see how that shakes out. And we'll do that again through, we may have 5 or 6 chapters by the end of this series, more or less, because, I'm just pulling all the Souls games. And I've got these ideas, and I've just got to... really what I have to do now is I have to sit down and play through those games with no HUD on, which is not the easiest thing in the world, because you can't tell your health, you can't tell enemies' health, but it makes it a much more cinematic experience and just looks really good. You really get to see the full kind of experience of these games, seeing it this way. And I actually, so of course in the time since this was originally recorded, Dark Souls Remastered has come out. And if you notice, all of this footage was still from the 360 version. It was the original Dark Souls because it was all recorded prior to Remastered coming out. But to re-record all of that and Remastered, seeing as how I used a character whose entire armor set was in, essentially the end of the game, so you have to do New Game Plus. It would have just been a tremendous time undertaking, and I think honestly the graphics still hold up fairly well. I did increase, if you noticed, and you may have a sharp eye, I don't know, I increased the contrast in the actual footage to kind of give it that grittier feel, because I wanted it to really, I wanted the darkness, the blacks to be black. I wanted the really to stand out, the light to be light, that it really showed the difference between light and dark, because that was the whole point of the series, right? The very dark of the darkness, and of course the light of the light. And so that's how I set about doing this series. And I've really enjoyed making it. Hopefully you have enjoyed watching it. I know I killed the character like twice and brought him back, right? And like I said, this one was very holy warrior based, very like very driven by these themes. And like in the final fight with Manus, I had him quoting scripture, things like that. And so that's unique to this character, and the next character will be completely different. Like I don't want to spoil anything. I'm trying not to be, we'll see the pilot when it comes for season 2 or chapter 2. Let me just put it that way. Episode 1 of chapter 2 will introduce a new character, and we'll see how different it is. Probably do Dark Souls 2 next, and then 3, and then I've got to figure out where on the schedule I want to land Bloodborne and Demon Souls. It all really just at this point. So if this, let's see, I'm assuming this series finishes in like October. We'll probably see Chapter 2 after New Year's. I'm just going to throw that out there because I'm recording this right now in, God, what is it, April? So I have not even begun filming for the next chapter. I've got to completely beat the game with no HUD. And then the same thing with the game after that, not to mention all of the voice lines and writing and things like that. So, and really once quarantine ends, hopefully in the next maybe 2 weeks or so, and we start going back to work, I won't obviously have near as much time to work on this. But this is what I want to work on, and I may end up bringing normal gameplay back to the channel. I may end up doing, more comedic gameplay type stuff again, though of course scaled back from what it was before, and much cleaner content as well, for that matter. But I want to continue this narrative series process because I just thoroughly enjoy it. And I hope that it gets some views. I hope that you all enjoy it as well. And if nothing else, I'll just watch it myself. The next thing to come out involving this is that it will be a Chapter 1, the movie, essentially, where I'll cut all 23 episodes, 24 episodes of Chapter 1. I'll cut them all together without the intro on each one, to where you can watch them all in one sitting if you so choose. And that way you can get the full story of Mordecai and his journey through darkness in one sitting, essentially, without having an intro between each one, because they are, they're fairly short. I think the longest episode was like 12 minutes, shortest being closer to like 2 or 3, but I tried to pace them to where they all ended and didn't leave you feeling like, well, that, like they all were supposed to hit a specific point. And I know now that this will be longer than any of the episodes, and this is just me talking, right, into the void. I guess I'll put some gameplay in the background or something like that, but anyway. Like I said, I hope you have all thoroughly enjoyed this series as much as I have. I really have enjoyed it, and I've shut up, Ice Maker. Why you gotta interrupt me like this? Anyway, I've had a narrative itch now for 2 years that I've just been wanting to create content and haven't been able to, and it means a lot to be able to do that again. Even though it's a different format and it may or may not get any views, I'm just so happy to be creating again, and I really hope that you all enjoy it. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on the series, if you enjoyed it, if you something you would change constructively, of course. Don't just tell me it all sucked, because good for you, I guess. But yeah, give me your thoughts and opinions on it. I'd really appreciate that. And I'll tell you you'll get more behind the scenes stuff as it comes closer to time for Chapter 2, as I did with Chapter 1. And yeah, I guess that's mostly it. So thank you guys so much. Shout out again to all my friends that helped me in this journey with voice work, with just feedback on episodes, and a huge thing up to Claude for the thumbnails. Britt from Brittopia, she did some promo art for me, and I just am really blessed to have a good community of friends that helped me after I've been out of the game for 2 years to get back into it on the right foot. I was so scared coming back because I was, it's hard to fall off a point where you're in the groove, to get knocked down and then to try to stand back up, and you're trying to reach that same level of quality to where you don't have a fall off, essentially. But and I really think I've achieved that through the help of my friends. We have good the editing is good on my part, thanks me. The voice acting for myself and my friends, the thumbnails are great, the art is good, the idea, the plot, I'm really proud of what we've put together here. And I will continue to produce this series, and I hope you are all excited for Chapter 2. And thank you guys so much once again. I'm Alek. of Lost Knights, the creator of Onward into Darkness. And I'll see you again for Chapter 2. So thank you.